state of my race, and maybe if we have time, share a couple of stories to give you some hope that what we're doing is so incredibly important for the future of our country. But what we all know, we are the battleground state. We were the tipping point state in 2016 that gave Trump the electoral votes he needed to become president. And he won Wisconsin by 0.7%. And we're also a tipping point state in 2020 when Joe Biden won Wisconsin by 0.6%. Nail biters. And what I will honestly tell you about my race right now is that it is tightening quite a bit. Our last set of polls that we saw last week showed it a 2-point race. And so we can take nothing for granted in our battleground state. And I will say that our battleground status has not escaped the notice of national Republicans. They had their convention in Wisconsin in July. That was not a coincidence. They're like, which states can we turn red? Which states can we turn red? And they picked Wisconsin, put a spotlight on us. And I would also say that it's not a coincidence that they went all the way to California to find a deep-pocketed opponent for me, right? They wanted to know that they had somebody who had a chance of flipping this Senate seat red. And, you know, I don't know how much you know about my opponent, Eric Hovde, but he owns a $3 billion California bank called SunWest Bank. He owns a $7 million home in Laguna Beach, California. And he has been named one of the most influential residents of Orange County 3 years in a row. It's not a casual relationship with California. And I like to remind people here, we have a brown county, and we have a green county, but we do not have an Orange County, Wisconsin. But then on the issues, the contrast could not be more stark. Eric Hovde wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act in its entirety. That would rip health insurance away from millions of Americans. I helped write the Affordable Care Act when I was in the House. And I wrote the provision that allows young people to stay on their parents' health insurance until they turn 26. Right. And I was on a college campus last week, UW Whitewater, and I actually said, okay, raise your hand if you're on your parents' health insurance. And to see almost every hand in the room go up, that's consequential legislation. And many of those folks wouldn't have it if we didn't have the Affordable Care Act. Well, my opponent calls that provision stupid, and he said kids just need to grow up. Really, he said that. My opponent celebrated when the Dobbs decision came down. I am leading the effort in the United States Senate to restore Roe with a measure called the Women's Health Protection Act. This one is just, as we dig deeper into it, is just so shocking to me. Eric Hovde now supports a plan that would significantly cut Social Security and Medicare benefits. Basically, he has said that he wants to go back to 2019 spending levels. That would cut the average Social Security recipient by about $6,000 per year. All so that he can support a $4 trillion tax cut that goes to the wealthiest, like himself, and profitable corporations. We've heard that one before during the Trump years. We cannot let it happen again. My opponent goes after me on spending. Well, you know what? $4 trillion, my opponent is not against spending. Just not for you, right? Just not for any of us. So it is a stark contrast. But one of the reasons I think they're also coming after me so hard is that I've never been afraid to take on the big battles and stand up to powerful interests. And you know what? Sometimes we win. And I'd like to share a couple of those stories. And I know our time's limited, so I'll give you the best I can. So for those of you who don't know me or what gave me the fire in the belly to want to run for office in the first place, it was healthcare. In part because my family's experiences. My mother was 19 when I was born, and she struggled with mental illness throughout her life. She also had chronic physical pain, and her doctors prescribed her narcotics, to which she became addicted. And when I was only 2 months old, she moved back in with her parents, my grandparents, and they raised me. And when I was 9 years old, I had a significant childhood illness of my own. It was similar to spinal meningitis. And I was in the hospital for 3 months. And my grandparents had health insurance, but they discovered in my time of need that their health insurance didn't cover grandchildren. I was not a legal dependent. And so between watching my mother's struggles in the healthcare system and watching my grandparents just worry about raising an uninsured child, I just thought our healthcare system was completely broken. And I resolved that I wanted to do something about it when I was old enough. So I ran for office. and as, yes, that's when we make the change, right? That's how we make these changes. And so I'm not going to tell you the stories of my early battles at the county level and state level, but when I was elected to the House of Representatives, I sat on a committee that was writing the Affordable Care Act. And we told those health insurance companies that refused to cover people with pre-existing conditions like me, or existing conditions like cancer and asthma and diabetes, we said, you must provide coverage. Isn't the whole idea of insurance is that we all pitch in against the risk that anything bad happens to any one of us? Well, we told them now they had a legal responsibility to cover in the Affordable Care Act. And I told you already about my amendment to allow young people to stay on their parents' health insurance. We stood up to powerful interests and we won that battle. And much more recently, we have been standing up to the big pharmaceutical companies. And while we have many more battles to fight, we have been winning. For the first time in history now, Medicare, on behalf of 70 million Medicare beneficiaries, is bargaining, negotiating with the pharmaceutical companies to lower the price.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I know so many people who go to Canada or mail order from Canada just to take advantage of their lower prices. Why do they have lower prices? Because their government actually negotiates with the big pharmaceutical companies. And we're starting doing that now. We've capped insulin for seniors at no more than $35 per month out of pocket. And I want to tell you about the latest battle I fought and won. This was really interesting to me because it didn't even require passing a law. So about 500,000 Wisconsinites have asthma. And if you have asthma or COPD, you need a daily inhaler and an emergency inhaler. And I started hearing from parents and adults with asthma that these were unaffordable. Now, if you have great insurance, it covers all of it, but the people who are underinsured or uninsured, the ones who can least afford it, often are the ones that are asked to pay full cost. And so, in the United States, the pharmaceutical companies set the list price. And here they are there's 4 companies, between $200 and $650 per inhaler. In Europe, the same inhalers cost between $5 and $75. So this January, some colleagues and I launched an investigation into the 4 manufacturers of asthma inhalers. And we basically asked 2 questions. 1, why do you charge US people, Americans, 10, 15, 20 times more than you do people overseas? And the second question was, why are there only 4 of you? I mean, after all, Inhalers were discovered in the 1950s. Their patents should have expired. There should be generic competition driving the cost down. We held hearings. We held press conferences. There was a little shaming involved. But we put a spotlight on them and their practices and told America what they were doing. And by March, 3 of the 4 companies came to our committee and said they were going to voluntarily lower the out-of-pocket costs for asthma inhalers to no more than $35 per month out of pocket. Wow. Two of the companies have implemented it already as of June 1st. The third is going to do it at the end of the year. And we are still running after that 4th company that has not come to us. But I ran into, I told this story in another group, and somebody came up to me afterwards and she said, last time I went to get my inhaler, it was $140 something, my copay, not the full price, obviously. She said, when I went to get it last month, it was $12. I now know why it was $12. I asked my pharmacist, like, it should be much more. Did you get it wrong? She's very, very happy to know that she's going to be able to afford her medicine.
Oh, great.
We can stand up to powerful interests. We can get things done. I note the time, so I'm going to conclude by saying that we have some big battles ahead. I'm the lead author, as I told you, of the Women's Health Protection Act, which would restore Roe nationally and take the additional step of telling the states like Wisconsin with its 1849 criminal abortion ban, and Texas with its 6-week ban, and Idaho that says you can't travel out of state to get health care covered. I mean, we would tell the states you can't pass things at the state level that interfere with the rights and freedoms in Roe. I do not yet have the support I need in the Senate. You need to overcome a filibuster, so I need 60 votes, and I don't have 60 votes yet on that bill. But I do have a plan. And that plan involves all of you working super, super hard in the remaining 27 days and some hours to re-elect me to the United States Senate. I ask for your vote. I ask for your support. We can do this.
We can do
We
this.
can do this.